Hello, Black Eagles. Welcome back to the Black Eagles Podcast YouTube channel. I'm here joined today by Kartal because we have some stuff to talk about. We haven't had a live show in a while. We will be actually recording, or we will be live on Sunday to do our season recap. But before that, there's some other stuff that we'd like to talk about, and we decided to just put a quick video together to talk about the current transfer rumors and also have a look at the new jerseys for the new season. We've already talked about the striped jersey and the white jersey, but we're going to have a look at them as well since, they're now, we've seen them on the players now, so we can give our thoughts on that. And then, of course, the new black jersey, which was revealed or leaked last night. Kartal, before we start talking about the jerseys, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. It's an exciting time of year, man. We're constantly refreshing the phones, looking to see what the latest rumours are. Who's the next player that we're probably not going to sign?
Yeah, it is. It's an exciting time of year for sure, but also a frustrating time for Beşiktaş fans, right? Because we see our rivals. Galatasaray already signed their first player. Fener haven't signed anyone yet, but you know they're going to sign some big names, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Although, I mean, leave it to Fener, of course, to probably sign some people who are over the hill. So, I mean, both our rivals are good at that as well, but so have we, in recent years. We're just saying the problem is we try to fight fire with fire, and we try to sign the same type of players than they do, but then like the cheaper versions and... Yeah,
it doesn't work out.
Yeah, it doesn't work. We need a different transfer strategy if we want to fight them. If we want to be successful with that, we need different weapons at our disposal for sure.
Exactly. We shouldn't fight fire with fire. We should fight fire with water.
Exactly. I agree. Exactly. So, do you want to get into the shirts first, or do you want to talk about the transfer rumors a little bit first?
I mean, we'll go with the transfer rumors first, and then we'll kind of finish it off with the shots if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. That's fine with me. I'll let you do the talking because you seemed excited about doing a video. So I think let's hear what your thoughts are. I already did a VIP show the other day talking about a lot of the transfer rumors right now. So which one do you want to start with?
I mean, Zambo is the player that we know that there's been concrete interest in. Anything else is just a rumour at this point, but just the amount of sources that have reported Zambo and the fact that it's been some of the more quote-unquote reliable journalists that have reported on him. Yeah. It makes you think that at the very least there is a genuine interest from the club. So I think he'd be a good starting point. Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I know this guy. I've already watched 7 games or whatever. I don't really know the player. I've not watched him play. But from what I've read and listened to, it seems like he is a very, very good player and was a pivotal player in both of Napoli's championship runs, both this past season and in the 22-23 season. So clearly a very good player. It seems he's a bit of a kind of hybrid between a 6 and an 8 from what I can see. Maybe more leaning towards being an 8 from what I've been able to look at. Not a playmaker, but it seems like he's just like an all-around midfielder. He's been Beşiktaş and Fix Analy's compared him to Atiba, where he's not going to be the guy you notice the most on the pitch, but he's the guy that will kind of bring everything together for you. But he did say that he's not the same player as Atiba. He's more of a physical player than Atiba is. But he likened the two players in that regard. Do I think if we were to sign this guy, would it be a good transfer? Yeah, probably. But and it's a very, very big up. But I think the money that's being talked about, 15-20 million for a player that's 29 just now, turns 30 in November, and is also from Cameroon, which we know is a country that's notorious for age fraud.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that guy, man, but if you look at the guy's face, to me he doesn't look 29 years old. So I'm not saying he is older. He very well could be 29 turning 30, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he's actually 33 turning 34 either. So I think the type of fee that's been spoken about and reported in the press, and the first offer we made was 10 million even, I think that's excessive for a player of that age in that position.
I agree, yeah.
So as much as I think everything we're reading's great, and I'm sure he's a brilliant player, I mean, you don't become a key player in 2 Serie A title runs and not be good. If you're a key player in 2 Serie A title runs, of course you're going to be a good player.
Yeah.
I do trust the people in the community that watch other games more and follow other leagues, and I do trust that he could be a player that's it could be very good for Beşiktaş if he came, and I'm sure he would be, but the money is just, I think, too much for a player of that age, where there's next to no resale value.
Yeah.
I think if you're really going to spend that kind of money, it either needs to be someone that you can flip on in the future, or it's going to be like a striker that's going to completely turn everything around for you. I think it's one of the two for me.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? I think when you're spending so apparently Napoli has set this price at 25 million, and their aim is to get 20 for him. I think first and foremost, the chances of Beşiktaş paying that I think are very small.
Zero.
Exactly. I think it's close to zero. And I agree with you. I think if Beşiktaş were to spend that type of money, I think it should be on a striker, somebody that's in his prime, in his physical prime, between the ages of 24 and 28, ideally.
Ideally,
yeah, and not like 28 turning 29 in 2 months, like proper, like just turned 28 or something like that.
Yeah.
With Zambo, first and foremost, I have no doubt that he's a quality player. But like you said, 29, turning 30 in November, so 30. Let's just call it at that. As for his face, like if you look at this picture, for example, I don't think he looks particularly old. There's a picture that was floating around the other day where he had some creases in his face where you thought, oh, this guy looks like 40. So it might just be the image you saw, because I think if you look at the picture I have in the background here right now, I think he looks like a normal 20-odd something, maybe early 30s guy. But I agree with you. Cameroon is notorious for age fraud, especially in football. That is not that is not something you should be apologizing for having doubts about that, because just in 2024, I believe more than 80 players were suspended by the Cameroon FA on suspicion of age fraud, and in the last 5 years they have suspended more than 160 players. So I mean, there's a lot of that going on in Cameroon. It's a really, really big issue. They've had multiple warnings from FIFA and stuff like that. So it is an issue. I think it also could explain, for example, with Vincent Aboubakar, why he declined as much as he did. I know he's had some bad knee injuries and all that kind of stuff, but I think Abu is probably not the age that his passport says he is. I think there's other players in the past with that like that. So is he? That doesn't mean this guy is as well. And it's not because
it's just something you need to be cautious of, I think.
Yeah, if like 10 out of 100 players do it, doesn't mean the other 90 do it as well. So, but it is something to be cautious about, and I agree with you that if we're going to pay a big transfer fee for a player, I think it should always be a player who is going to have a long-term upside. Now, that doesn't necessarily need to be transfer value, resale value, because I think that if you sign a player for 15 million or 20 million, something that we have not done yet in our history and not even close have done. But let's say, let's suspend our disbelief for a second, say Beşiktaş are going to spend 20 million. I don't think Beşiktaş spending 20 million would ever be on a player to then sell on for a profit. I don't think that's necessarily realistic, because those types of fees don't generally get paid for players from the Turkish league. So I think if Beşiktaş were to pay 15 to 20 million for a player, it's probably going to be for somebody that's going to be here for 4 or 5 years,
And for example, what you said about resale value, I think see if it's going to be a player that's like a talisman.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not as much of a thing, but see for a number 6/8, I just think it's too much money. Like Patrik Schick is also 29, albeit turns 30 next year in January though, which is right at the start of the year. See if they were to say we're paying 15 million for him, I wouldn't mind personally.
I'd rather see us spend it on like somebody like the other player who we've been linked with recently, Prince David. Prince David? No, sorry. Promise David. Prince David. No, Promise David from Union or Tolu Arokodare from Genk. I'd much rather see us spend it on a striker like that because yes, they're less proven than a Patrik Schick, but they are 23, 24 years old and they have massive upside. And in fact, I think if you spend 15 million on either of those guys, there is the potential of actually in 2-3 years' time. Yeah, you could sell them for 30 or for 20 or for 25. You could, if they do well, they could bring you a profit. Now, Promise, I think, is way out of our price category. Union have put a price tag of 20 million on his head, so that's not going to work. Tolu, I think Genk have also put like a 20-ish million, like 17, 18 million on his head, but I think you can get him for 15. I also think that Tolu, probably from the two, is maybe the less talented player, if that makes sense.
I've read that as well, Kaan. Obviously, if you being from Belgium, you'd have a good idea of that.
Well, I watch Genk, but I don't watch Union that often, so I can't really comment too much on Promise. But Tolu, I think is kind of like Hugo Almeida. He is a good striker, really good target man, and Hugo Almeida without the injuries. And I think if you take away the injuries by Hugo Almeida, I think you've got a 20-goal a season striker there. Because if you remember in the seasons that he played for us, he always had like if he would have never gotten injured or just small injuries or something, like he always got derailed by injuries. I think he scored like 13 goals almost every season. I think if you take away like the 1 or 2 months that he misses because of injury, I think he scores 20 goals. And that's kind of what I think of Arokodare as well. And I thought Hugo Almeida was actually, I think he's an underrated striker for us. Honestly.
Yeah, I liked Almeida, man. Like, see, even at the time, if you looked at some of my like on Facebook and stuff like that, I had like Almeida as my profile photo, man. Like, he's a player I definitely liked him, man.
I just think that's the type of player that I think you can liken Tolu to. And that doesn't mean that he's like, I mean, I know Almeida had his detractors as well. Like, you know, he could be very frustrating in front of goal. And I think that's kind of the thing with Tolu as well. I think he's the type of player that on his day, he's an absolute beast. But yeah, the problem is that he can be frustrating as well. And that's the same thing with Almeida. I think Almeida had those types of, was that type of a player as well. I'm trying to bring up some pictures here, but
I think in an ideal world, obviously, if you could bring Promise, I think he'd probably be the better signing from what I've read.
Yeah, probably.
Just having a look at his stats and stuff there as well. But if we're being realistic, Tolu is probably the more realistic option of the two, considering the stats are, well, this season anyway, are slightly less impressive. And you reckon he's maybe not as talented as well, so we could get him for a bit cheaper.
You know, I think Tolu is more. I think he's a more stereotypical strong number 9, and I think Promise has some more technical talent, and it's maybe a little bit more explosive, a little bit more useful outside the box. I think Tolu is a really good target man. Good player inside the box. He very big aerial threat, decent with his feet, but he can be frustrating sometimes. He can miss some chances, but striker? I mean, of course, like a striker like Mario Gomez, like misses very little chances, but realistically, for 10, 15 million, we're not going to get the next Mario Gomez in his prime, you know?
You're probably not going to get Promised David either. But I mean,
the thing with Promised David as well is that like he's had like one really good season in his career, and of course he's young. You know, he's 22 or 23, I think. So, you know, that's understandable why, but like it is one of those things where I think you need to be a little cautious. I do feel like we need a bit of more of a guarantee. And like with Patrik Schick, for example, you know what you're getting. With Alexander Sørloth, you know what you're getting. You know, those are the type of players that they guarantee. Like if they come, you're pretty much guaranteed they're gonna score. 25 goals essentially.
Yeah,
or 20.
I mean that. I think, to be honest, I think Schick is a pipe dream. I mean, I think Ten Hag said he wants to keep him around as a start striker.
Yeah,
so there
exactly.
You go.
And that's
that done before we even started. I think Sørloth, pipe dream. The guy scored. Atletico Madrid paid 30 million for him last year.
Yeah, exactly.
And on top of that, he scored 20 goals in La Liga.
Yeah.
So why would they let him go?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then he's not their starting striker. Some people will argue, but that only makes it even less plausible. I think.
I mean, who would sell that? Who would sell like a sub striker that scored you 20 league goals? Like that's almost unheard of.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like. Who doesn't want a substitute striker, like you said, that can come off the bench and score you goals reliably like that? That like everyone wants a super sub like that.
We don't even have one striker that can score 20 goals in the league, man. Like imagine if we had a backup, we'd never let that guy go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're 100% right. But you know, both of them, Sørloth and Schick, like people online, like our fans are. I don't know our fans, their heads are so high up in the clouds. Like, those transfers are impossible. Yeah,
I think it's impossible as well. What I will say, though, is I think last year Schick was possible.
Yes. Because apparently, did you see that with Talibjan on
Yeah,
on
apparently like 15 million transfer fee and 5 million a year in wages we'd agreed for him to come. But Hussein Yücel said, no, we'll go with Immobile instead because... the fans will react better, which people like me.
Did he say Hussein? I don't think he said Hussein.
He didn't say Hussein Yücel, but he said the board at the time.
Yeah, the board. Yeah,
you need to think.
You need to be careful with what you say, though, Kartal, because now you're like putting it in Hussein Yücel's shoes.
I'm just basing it off of the fact that it was him that brought Immobile.
Yeah, okay, but that's
maybe I should be assuming.
That's an assumption.
I think let's say there's a high likelihood that it was Hussein Yücel. You say that's acceptable?
Well, I mean, I don't know, but I'm trying to bring up the tweet just so people can see it. But
I mean, I think maybe casual fans were more excited about Immobile, but if you look at the quote unquote the scoutherders Videotyper, the scout wankers, if you look at us, I think we would have been a lot more excited with Patrik Schick last summer. Do you not agree?
Oh yeah, for sure. I talked myself into being happy about Immobile because if you remember when we did the initial reaction, I wasn't very very excited, but then I kind of talked myself into it. And here you can see that tweet by the way behind us. So it does say that supposedly, according to Talibjan on Twitter, you can see his handle right there. We had an agreement last season with Leverkusen for Patrik Schick, and if you remember, like he was like their B striker essentially. So we had an agreement with them apparently for 15 million euros, which is a lot of money, and then a 5 million wage. And then people may say, okay, but we only paid Immobile 6 plus like a 3 million transfer fee, so Immobile was cheaper, but. This is a striker. If we would have bought Schick, you probably would have had a striker for
like a few years.
Yeah, and I also don't agree with this rhetoric of if this is true that the board thought that the fans would be more excited about Immobile. I don't agree with that either. Yeah, that's just. Then I think that just shows that board was extremely out of touch with reality because I'm 100% sure that the vast majority of Beşiktaş fans would have been a lot more excited by Patrik Schick than by Immobile. Because Immobile was...
Don't get me wrong, a lot of casual fans very excited by Immobile, but
Of
I
course,
think
he's a
Schick
former.
excites everyone.
Yeah, but he's a former European Golden Boot. Of course, people are going to be excited. But he's 34 years old. Patrik Schick was 28. There's a big difference there.
He'd had 2 bad seasons before coming, which is why I didn't want him. But Patrik Schick. So see the people that think that we'll be able to bring Schick now. So last year when he'd only scored 13 league goals and was like the number 2 striker, if we agreed on 15 then, how much do you think he's going to cost when he's just scored 21 league goals?
I think he's not for sale. 20. I think he's not for sale.
Yeah, I mean, if he was for sale, but you'd got to think the transfer fees at least went up 5 million, and that's probably keeping it low. You'd think possibly even 10 if he was for sale.
Well, I don't know about that. I think if they were willing to sell him, given his age, I think there'd be a possibility there, maybe for 15 to 20 million still. But I think they're just not gonna want to be willing to let him go. Like, why would they?
He scored 21 league goals last season.
27 goals in all competitions, if I'm not mistaken. So why on earth would they sell him?
They wouldn't. It'd be stupid unless it was a big wad of cash they can't say no to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if a Premier League club comes in and offers them £30 million, then of course they're gonna say yes. But Beşiktaş coming in with their measly 10 million, that's not gonna fly. This is the thing. Beşiktaş cannot get any of we can't do this. Like, unless they put cold hard cash on the table. Unless Adala says, okay, we're going to spend 25 or 20 to 25 million, then you can get a striker like Sörloth and Schick maybe. Sörloth, I don't know, but you can get a striker like them. But if you don't have that type of money to spend, then you are already automatically fishing in different waters. Like I said, like a guy like Tolu, for example, Arokodare, by the way, for those who don't know who I'm talking about, a Genk striker, Tolu Arokodare, 15 million is gonna be the minimum. And there's no coming in with 10 and then settling on 12. No, you're gonna have to pay 15. Genk are not going to let him go for 12 or 13. I don't see that happening. I'm sorry, I just don't see it happening. And then I don't know if you saw that other rumor, because since we're talking about strikers now anyway, the top scorer of the Polish league, apparently, a Greek guy, I forgot his name, Muzraati or something like that. I'm gonna bring up the tweet here. I had it before on Haber Kartal. I am probably gonna have to switch to a different news site here for the background, news Twitter account for the background, because Haber Kartal have this annoying tendency they have this sort of vendetta with Murat Özen, so they post none of Murat Özen's news, so that makes them not ideal for something like this, I feel, because they're gonna omit important stuff. I'm just trying to find that tweet. So how many hours was that ago? We get to see this sexy picture of Emirhan and Taib in the background, by the way. I had this tweet up earlier. Do you remember his name, Kartal, the Greek striker?
I don't know, man. I'm trying to find him.
Oh, here he is. So, the Polish league top scorer, Greek forward, Etrinios Koulouris. Apparently, according to SDNA, we submitted a 4 million offer for him. I believe he is 29. I checked him out earlier.
Yeah, that's right.
He's 29 years old, so I would imagine that this would be as the number 2 striker.
I mean, I've just realised something interesting about this guy.
Yeah.
In the 22-23 season, he played 10 games in the Turkish Super League.
Oh, really?
The leagues for Alanya Sports.
Oh, okay.
And he only scored 3 goals.
Yeah.
So.
But when was that? 20 what?
22-23. So. 2 seasons. Well, 2 seasons before this past season.
Yeah. I mean,
it'll be 3 seasons ago coming.
Yeah, but if you look at his career, I think he has 2 seasons where he has a decent amount of goals or something. So it's and he had a lot of goals in Poland this year. I think like 31 or something like that. Like that.
Yeah, 32.
But it does feel like this is kind of like you have these strikers, right? That they have like the one season in their career where they're like crazy, they score a shit ton of goals, and they kind of, the rest of their career before and after is like, nowhere near that level. I kind of get those vibes here without having watched this guy play, of course, but like just looking at his career trajectory, the clubs he's played for. He's also not very tall. I saw he's like 184.
184.
So, like, even as a second striker, like, I don't think that's ideal. Because I've talked about this many times. I think your second striker off the bench should be somebody who can come in if you need a goal late in a game that you can put in the box, so you can just pump balls into the box and it's going to be an aerial threat. Now, look, this guy could be 184 and could have like a crazy vertical leap and be like one of the best headers. So I'm just saying this purely based off of looking at his height and looking at his career trajectory. I know this player absolutely not. That's a weird sentence, I know, but I have no knowledge about this guy. So he could be like Wesley Song in Belgium. He's like 173. He was really small, but he had an insane vertical leap. He scored a ridiculous amount of headers. If you remember, Genk, just 183, but he scored a lot of headed goals. He was a really good, very good striker off the bench. So it's perfectly possible that this guy is similar to that, but I don't know the guy, so whatever. By the way, did you see that Koulouris have agreed terms with Bruno Petkovic, who is a good Croatian international, by the way, and somebody who could have been a good second option for us, like tall, guarantee for a decent amount of goals every season. Not a first striker, but I think a second striker would have been interesting for us. So it's interesting to see that Koulouris snap him up.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his last couple of years, Petkovic doesn't look too good, so I don't know if he even would be a good second striker.
I mean, 13, 14 goals a season. Last season, I think he only scored 6. This season, that just came by, but I don't know. I think he's, that could have been a potential interesting option, and cheap, mostly. That's the most important part. 1.5 million for us, 1.5 million a year. For a second striker, I think is perfectly acceptable. For Koulouris, that's a fuck ton of money. But like for us, if you can get him for free on 1.5 million a year, yeah, why not, right? That would have been an interesting option and a cheap way to fill that spot. So
I mean, see if the targets to have like Breel Mbolo as your number 2 striker. I think Petkovic would be quite a drop off to you.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. But like, how much stock are we gonna put into that as well? Because like, Sabunjolo was saying that Monaco does not want a transfer fee for him, but then there were a lot of conflicting reports. I think maybe Murat Özen was saying that Monaco are looking for a significant transfer fee for him. So it's like, what are we gonna believe, right? Like also with Yais, I often have the impression that there's a little bit of an agenda behind his tweets. Like for example, the whole Zambo thing.
Yeah,
the whole thing about Zambo.
It's starting to look a wee bit as if he's creating a narrative that we wanted him, and then Fenerbahçe
exactly. And I don't know if you've seen, like, I've noticed in the past that Yais does that. Like he obviously there's no secret that he has very close ties to Fenerbahçe and to the Fenerbahçe board.
Yeah,
he's essentially like almost like a mouthpiece for them. He has great sources all around. Don't get me wrong. Usually you have these reporters like, let's say Sercan Dikme in his prime or Murat Özen, when they write something about Beşiktaş, okay, it's probably true. But when they say something about Fenerbahçe or something like that, like they have no sources there. Like it's not like that with Yas. Yas has sources everywhere. But I do feel like he is first and foremost a Fener reporter. And when it comes to this Sambo stuff, I'm sure like maybe the interest is true. I don't know. But like I cannot imagine that we as a club, with the limited resources that we have, and I think Settle Adala has made it very clear that the striker is our priority. I cannot imagine that we're gonna, like, our first big move in the summer would be splashing 10 plus million on a 29-year-old, almost 30-year-old midfielder. Even right now, as long as Jetson isn't gone, like, I don't even think there's really, I mean, Muzraati, Jetson, none of them are gone yet. Like, I think the striker role is something that they're gonna spend the most money on. So I have a hard time believing that we are that's much invested in Zambo, you know?
If we really have that much money to spend on a midfielder, I think we could probably not spend that money and sign the Italian boy for 5 or 6 million from.
Oh, you mean Esposito? You mean that one?
Because allegedly he's very good. So if you could get him for more than half the less than half the price.
His price, I think his price tag is around 4 million euros.
Yeah, I think they're looking for 5 or 6 ideally. So let's say you sign him for 5 million, like that's like a quarter of the money you'd probably need to pay for Zambo, and that boy's 23, 24, so he's going to have a lot of upside as well. We can potentially sell him for a lot more in a couple of years, and then if you really have that kind of money to spend, you can take the rest of that money and spend it on a striker. And also, I think Pasalic, you can sign him on a free as well. So there's a lot of things we can do.
Yeah.
Because especially if we were to sign Zambo as the 6, and then we went and signed Pasalic as well, then all of a sudden your midfield's old. They're all over 30.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's another thing to bear in mind as well. So I think if you can sign Esposito as your 6 and then Pasalic beside him, that gives you a much better balance in the midfield in terms of age as well and energy.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's also, you've talked about this a lot. Yeah. You know, we need to keep the team younger. We need to get the team younger, and we need to stop.
I mean, from what I've read, Zambo's full of energy as well. In fact, some people are saying he's like Jetson, but he can actually pass the ball. That's what people are writing on Twitter. I don't know how true that is, but obviously you don't know how much longer he's going to be able to contribute that sort of energy, considering his age.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it all depends on how old he really is, right? Going back to what we were saying earlier. By the way, what's this from? From Ertan Suzgan. So Utrecht are still thinking of Semi Kilicsoy for their first as their first striker, as an option for their first striker, and Sela Adale wants the option to be 15 million, or even more than 15 million, I think, right? Oostende. So I mean, look, I talked about this a little bit on the VIP side of things the other day. I think that it's much better not to include an option, because I think if you include an option of 15, which 15 is good money, don't get me wrong, but I think if you include an option of 15, if they decide to trigger that means he has had a monster season. If he has a monster season in the Netherlands, you can get 20 to 25 easy. 20 to 25. Right. Exactly. Like, for what he is, the age he is, he'll be 20 by the end of this upcoming season. He'll only be 20 years old. If he scores 25 plus goals, if he scores 30 goals, something like that in the Netherlands, he's going to be worth north of 25 million euros. So if you include an option of 15 million in his contract, you are shooting yourself in the foot, because they're never going to trigger that if he only scores 18 goals. You know, and if he only scores, like, let's say he scores 15 to 18 goals, then you're probably in a position where maybe I'd take 15. I mean, personally, I wouldn't, but maybe you're in a position where 15 million would be acceptable or commonly accepted by the fans. But I think the only way you can loan this guy out to Utrecht is if you include a silly transfer fee of 25 million. That is what you need to do, I think. Like, and I would go with a construction similar to the one with Talisca, if you remember. You make them pay like a loan fee, make them pay like 2.5 million euros or something, and then if they trigger the option, that goes off of the option or something like that. I don't know. Or you just give them you don't give a loan fee, you give him for free, but he needs to, if they want to buy him, it needs to be for 20 plus, which is not realistic for Utrecht. They're never going to do that unless he has a monster season and they have offers and they know they can flip him. So they're never going to do that. I think that's the only acceptable option. Otherwise, you need to loan him without an option to buy.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, I think what you're saying could be quite right, yeah, man. we loan him to Utrecht and he explodes, then 15 million all of a sudden is not going to sound so good. But like just now, I think it sounds good.
Yeah, and that's what.
Based off of the season just had.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. If you can sell him,
it's not about just now, but it's about anticipating how it's going to work out. And
if you sell him right now, if they come and they say 15 million and they pay it, that's a different story. If they pay, even if they say, like when the initial offer of 10 million came in, on the VIP side, I said if they buy him now for 10, I think a lot of fans will be upset, but I think it'll be understood to an extent. I don't think the backlash will be massive, but the only way 10 is acceptable is if they buy him outright right now and they take all the risk. I think if the option is 10, it's absolutely unacceptable. You cannot do that. And I think 15 million is not enough of a jump. I think it needs to be 20 plus. If it's
just no option at all, and just we'll see the market once he's been there for a year.
Exactly.
If he scored a lot of goals, there's no reason why we can't sell him for big money.
And there's
even that has that on the CV.
And you can entice them to play him by saying if he does really well for you guys, you do not get an option, but if you play him week in week out, you will get 5 or 10%. Let's call it 10%. You get 10% if we sell him within the next year or so. Essentially, that's what Benfica did with Talisca. We had a percentage. We were gonna get we were gonna get our loan fee back. Remember, if they sold him straight after they loaned him to us, that's how it was. We were gonna get our 5 million loan fee back. But they
got around that by loaning him out initially
which in turn completely justifies us to fuck them over on Jetson, in my opinion. I think we should totally try to screw them out of their percentage. Anyway, I think 15 million as an option is unacceptable. 15 million as a if they buy him now, I'd sell him straight away. 10 million I think is a little on the low end, but 15 million I think I would sell him straight away. The problem is, of course, Utrecht cannot pay that. They don't have that type of money for one player. That's not going to happen. But I think if, for example, PSV or Ajax, well, PSV don't really need to strike, but if Ajax would come knocking and they would say 15 million, I think you say yes. But only because you know you're getting that money straight away, you know?
Kaan, what do you think about Masuaku's seemingly out the door? It seems like he's not going to be re-signed. How do you feel about that?
Well, I hope that means then that we're bringing in a good new left back, and then I have no problem with it. My argument was always I would keep Masuaku another year because I think we have so much work to do. We have to bring in a striker. We have to bring in a winger. We have to bring in a number 6. I think those 3 are more important than the fullbacks right now. But it looks like there's a big chance that we might be signing Osayi Samuel as our new right back. So, I mean, it does look like we're making work of the backs. And if Masuaku is not going to be extending, then, of course, by definition, I think that means we'll be bringing in a left back. So I'm happy with that. I don't mind. Yeah. I just thought that it would make sense to keep Masuaku for another year because that alleviates the necessity of having to bring in a left back right now, you know? And that would...
I think but then you're on the risk of what happened last year where he absolutely fucks you over in the first half of the season.
It's an AFCON season as well, so you know you're gonna
apparently miss him for a month. They're only going to miss a couple of games this year because of the way how the breaks scheduled in the league. They'll only miss a couple of games.
Yeah, but even if you miss him for 4 or 5 matches, that's a lot. You know?
They're saying 2 games. I don't know if that's just for the group stages though. I'd have to look at it myself, but that's what I'm saying.
It's probably just for the group stages, I would imagine. But that's still like, and not just that, you're also adding on a lot of extra matches in a period where players are supposed to get a couple of weeks rest. 2 weeks. They're supposed to get 2 weeks rest in that period, like a little bit of time to, you know, fuel the tank again. And we did see last time, like the Africa Cup had a negative impact on him. He had a really good AFCON, but then he came back and, he had some injuries, and he had some injuries before that. And this season he has been injury-free. So I think Masuaku was probably struggling for the entire season with a recurring injury or something. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just think personally, ideally we replace both fullbacks. It seems like Osayi's coming in potentially for $2 million a year. I think the salary's high.
1.9, I think, is what Settle Adal said that they offered him.
But I do believe that Osayi Samuel is a good player, so I think he'll improve us at the right back spot, especially if he can stay healthy. If we can get a good dynamic left back, maybe one that's a bit more technical than Osayi, that'd be really good as well. But yeah, I think the fact that we're not renewing Masuaku is a good sign that we're going to be able to make quite a lot of change this summer. That's what we're hoping for anyway. And I do think that an important part of the team that needs changed is the fullbacks. We need to upgrade them because Masuaku, for a large part of this past season, was a liability. Despite in the second half of the season he did really coming into his own. But even at that, man, if you remember the fucking Beşiktaş game, he get absolutely fucked by Yusuf Sarı. He got fucked by Yusuf Sarı twice.
Yeah, he did. There was a tweet earlier, by the way, from Kaan Giddick. I'm sure that's an account you follow as well. He's a guy who shares like a lot of
edits.
Yeah, edits and stuff like that. So he had this tweet, which I think is pretty interesting. So if you can't, essentially what it boils down to, if you can't right at this time announce new transfers, then there's other things you can do. You can announce that you're parting ways with Masuaku. You can announce that you've agreed to terminate Svensson's contract. You can announce that you've sold Muzraati for 10 million. You can announce that you've agreed to terminate Chamberlain's contract. You can announce that you've terminated Taiwo's contract. You can announce that you've let Onur Bulut go. You can announce that a Russian team has bought Zainutinov, or you have agreed with a Russian team for Zainutinov. You can announce that you've loaned out Amir. You can announce this. You can announce that. So, like, he is saying essentially, it's not because you can't have incoming transfers announced yet, because there's nothing that's finished yet. It doesn't mean that everything else needs to stay quiet. Why is there no movement at all? There can be movement the other way. There's a lot of players we need to offload. I understand, like, for example, he's saying, terminate Onur. I understand with Settle Adala because apparently Başakşehir want Onur and they want him for free. But I think, do I like Onur? Do I think Onur is worth a lot of money? No. But I think if the roles were reversed, Başakşehir would not be giving us a player for free. So why should we be giving them a player for free? When has a Turkish team ever given us a player for free? Right? Like, it doesn't happen. So why should we? So even if it's only 300,000 euros, no, fucking pay. They've been after him for a while. They wanted him in January. I'm sure they wanted him last summer as well. So no, you can pay 500k, or alternatively, which I think is better, let's trade. We'll give you Onur, we'll give you Salih, you give us Yusuf Sarı.
Yeah.
So I don't 100% agree with Kaan here. Ironically, haha. I agree with myself, also Kaan. No, I don't 100% agree with him on this. Like, I think there's players here in this list that he's made. Obviously, it's just an example, but like, for example, Onur, I think there's something to be gained with Onur. I think you can get a little bit of money for him, or you can include him in a player trade deal. Başakşehir are keen on him. I'm sure other clubs are keen on him as well. But yeah, I do agree with him. Like, why is it taking us so long? Like Chamberlain, for example. Like, there's been reports that he's negotiating with Leicester, that he's negotiating with a couple of, I believe, Premier League clubs, Leeds United, supposedly. There's some reports, there's rumors out there. So, but realistically, are we going to be able to get a fee for him? Probably not, right? It's probably going to be a case of we terminate this deal. So
yeah, for Chamberlain, definitely. Yeah. There's no way we'll get a fee for him.
So
the best case scenario is he says, look, I'll leave the money on the table and maybe signs a 2-year deal elsewhere.
So what would you do, Kartal? Would you wait and see if he finds a deal with a club, and then let's say they offer him $1.5 million a year, and then you only have to give him 1.5 million to fuck off? Or would you say no? Fucking here's 3 million. Fuck off right now.
It's a hard one, Ken. It's a hard one.
You'd be. I think there's no real downside to waiting, right? Because you can always give him the 3 million in August and tell him to fuck off then.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're quite right. Yeah, Now you've pointed that out, I agree with you there. It's probably best waiting because we don't need to let it stop us signing players. As long as we've only got 14 registered come the end of the window, then we're fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
I mean, look, what did we do last season? We signed a bunch of players, and then it's not until right at the end where you need to submit a final list, and that's the only time you're going to run into issues. So
yeah, the issue with Chamberlain, if you remember, was that if we didn't register him for at least one competition, he was gonna he had a clause in his contract that he could terminate, and we'd have to pay him out the full 6 million, and we couldn't do it in installments. We had to do it we had to pay him straight away, essentially. Yeah. So I think the problem with that is as well, if we terminate him just now, we're gonna run into an issue where we have to pay him straight away. Whereas if we negotiate with him, okay, we're gonna pay you the 3 million, but we're gonna pay it over 5 years or something, That's something you need to negotiate with him, right? But essentially, yeah, I think I understand Kaan, and I understand his, there needs to be signs from the club that things are moving, that wheels are in motion. Yeah. But I think in certain situations, like for example with Chamberlain, like for example with Zainotinov, almost all these players he's mentioning, especially the ones he wants to terminate. I think there's situations where, you're probably better off waiting a little bit and not rushing it, because you could potentially lose less money. You're always going to lose money probably, but you're going to lose less. If you can save 1.5 million on Chamberlain, that's good, I think, right? And then given the fact that he's played as much as he has, and he was playing decently under Ole and pretty injury free right up until the end, and it was only a small injury. There is a chance that maybe an English club says, yeah, we'll take this. We'll take him on. The problem is we are paying this guy 3 million net.
If we were only paying him, say, a million last year, he would have left. The problem is that salary is a huge salary for someone that's had injury problems.
That's a £5 million. That's £5 million pounds a year, essentially. It's a £5 million wage in England, because they pay 47% tax. So in order for them to get the 3 million euro net, he has to be paid essentially £5.5 million pounds, and nobody's going to pay him that. That's not happening.
No chance.
Yeah, no chance. Exactly. He might get from a club like Leicester or Leeds, who's in the Premier League. Leicester, who's going down to the Championship, but still have money. It's possible they offer him 2 million pounds, right? But that's essentially what 1 million. That's 1.2 million euros or something. So then you'll probably have to pay him another additional million to fuck off. Maybe he'll leave a couple of 100,000 on the table. And I say fuck off. I don't mean it disrespectfully, it's just the way I'm speaking. I don't mean it in a bad way towards Ox at all. No, it's because I think people, are so disrespectful towards players sometimes when they want them to leave. Yeah. I don't have anything against Ox, it's not his fault that idiots gave him that contract. And of course, if you were in his position, would you walk away last season? Would you just walk away from 6 million euros?
Of course not, man.
No, of course not.
If I wasn't a Beşiktaş fan, and if my name is Oxlade Chamberlain, and I had no links to the club outside of being a contracted player, I don't walk away from that money. Obviously,
of course not.
Us being fans, it's different. If for us, if it was us ourselves, we'd potentially do it because we love the club. But look, this guy's got no ties to the club, so if I was to put myself in his shoes as someone that's got no prior links to the club, why would I walk away? Exactly.
And let's talk about this one as well. By the way, we've been linked with him in the past. I think Ertan Suzgun was linking us to him. So there's a nice little overview here that Kartal have. So I'll just, we already talked about Anguissa, Zambo Anguissa. But there's also this 20-year-old Brazilian winger, Wesley, who plays for Al Nassr. And apparently, I believe the report was from Ertan Süzgün, Beşiktaş have made an offer to loan him with an option to buy. And Al Nassr, apparently, this is not related to this report, but they are very keen on offloading almost all their foreigners this window. So I think it should be possible for us to loan this kid. Having said that, he didn't do very well in Saudi Arabia. That's obviously why they want to let him go. So I don't know what they paid for him. That would be interesting to know. Would you mind looking that up, maybe, Kartal? How much they ended up paying for him? But he's like 20 years old. The Brazilians in or I should say the Saudi league, and especially the big Riyadh clubs, they have hoovered up some talent. If you remember last season, Angelo Gabriel,
18 million.
They paid 18 million for the kid. So it's not because he had a bad season in Saudi that he isn't a very, very talented player. I think a lot of players, if you remember Quaresma, when he went to Qatar, when he left us, he didn't do shit in Qatar. A lot of these types of players, once they secure the bag, like for example Quaresma, I think for Quaresma, he did not find joy in playing football in Qatar. Playing in empty stadiums, he did not. That's not what, he was miserable there. And it's perfectly plausible that a guy like, this Brazilian kid Wesley, like a talented player, who's coming from Brazil, full stadiums, crazy fans, crazy fan culture, then gets dropped into the sandbox of Saudi Arabia. And okay, in the home games, there's decent crowds maybe for Al Nassr, but then he goes away to Al Fateh and there's 200 people in the stadium. He probably thinks to himself, what the fuck is this? Where the hell did I end up in? It's 50 fucking degrees. And there's players who go there and they don't enjoy themselves. And like if you take Saint-Maximin, for example, that's a player you would think Saint-Maximin would destroy the Saudi league. If you look what Nkudu does there, Saint-Maximin is, in my opinion, a much better version of Nkudu. Same speed, less injury prone, strong, maybe a little bit less of a finisher, but still, I think normally you would think someone like Saint-Maximin destroys the Saudi league, but he didn't. He didn't do shit there, and I think that's because these players just go there for the money, and they don't go for the football, and I think they're mentally checked out. The question is then, this Wesley kid, if you bring him, is he gonna check back in, right?
Yeah, that's the problem, man. You never know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's finished off football altogether on his head.
But that's why loaning with an option to buy is interesting. As long as you do not have an obligation, you can loan this kid and you can see how he does. He could explode in Turkey, He could have a fantastic season. He could be like Manuel Fernandez's first season or first 6 months when we loaned him, and then we can buy him on the cheap. If we have I don't know what Al Nassr is gonna ask. I mean, they paid 18 million, so they'll probably want at least 10 or something like that. But depending on the season he has, if he has like a good season but not 10 million worth, you can still negotiate the fee down. And you can maybe get him for 5 or for 6.
Right. To be honest, Kaan, do you think it's a good idea that we sign a winger like Wesley just now when we've already got Kenny Arroyo? Do you not think it'd maybe be better getting someone that's a bit more established, considering they already have one kind of project?
I think you can sign him, but then you need to get rid of Rashica, and then you need to bring in one more experienced, more established winger to replace Rashica. And then I think you can have Wesley and Arroyo as the 2 young wingers. I do also think we need to start trusting our scouts. And we need to need to give them the ball and let them run with it. So I think if our scouts are insisting on this kid, then I think we need to trust them and get him. Simple as that. That's their job.
Yeah, if it's not agents that are saying take this guy, then
no, of course, no.
If it's Edel Graf that's proposing this transfer, then fair enough.
Man. Yeah, but this is almost certainly a scouting, right? Like this is not agents. Why would it be agents? It's a 20-year-old Brazilian.
Yeah, potentially as someone that maybe Al Nassr wants to get rid of. Potentially his agent is digging around trying to find him a new club.
It's possible, but I think it's a 20-year-old Brazilian. To me, that seems like, okay, that has to be John Vick, Edward Graaf. That needs to be the scouts. That has to be the scouts. And I think if it's the scouts, then you need to make a serious effort at getting him for a favorable amount. All right, Osayi Samuel, we already talked about that. We talked about Utrecht's interest in Semi as well. But yeah, apparently they're preparing a new offer, so that's positive. Then what else do we have here in this summary? Muzraati having interest from both Saudi Arabia, and France, but no offer yet. That's positive. Let's hope that money gets put on the table there, because we really need to offload him, because I think it's clear that Muzraati's Beşiktaş career is at an end. To me, that kind of ties into Demir Ege, though, because I see Demir Ege as a very similar type of number 6. And I find it so funny that Beşiktaş fans, for the majority, were very down on Muzraati, because he doesn't have the physicality, he doesn't have the destroyer number 6, destroyer defensive midfielder traits. He doesn't have that, and that's what they want. Yeah. They want a Joseph de Souza. They want something like that. But then on the other hand, those same fans are like, oh yeah, let's keep Demir Ege, let's play Demir Ege, and they're putting him in their lineups, in their fantasy lineups. And I'm just thinking to myself, look, if you didn't like Muzraati, you're not going to like Demir Ege, and then you're going to start shitting on Demir Ege 2 weeks into the season. So
yeah, I think it's in the best interest for the club and the player just to move on. We should sell him. Apparently Celtic want him.
Demir Ege we're talking about now, right?
Yep. Demir Ege. Yep. I've even had my friend message me about him asking, what do you think of Demir Ege? Celtic are strongly linked. I also believe RB Leipzig and FC Porto are also linked. So that's 3 great clubs that want him. So if we can get a decent transfer fee,
if you get
7-8 million,
8-9 million or something like that, maybe 10. Supposedly Rio Ave were holding out for 10 million, but the offer didn't come. But we have time. We have the luxury of, we don't need to sell. We don't have a deadline, right? We have time, so we can wait for the 10 million offer.
Exactly.
Or 9, whatever. So personally, I would sell Demir Ege, and it's not because I don't necessarily believe in Demir Ege, although I have been on the record saying I think there's talent there, but I don't like. I said this last season when we loaned him to Rio Ave with the 5 million option. I said, yeah, that's fine, because right now he is not a Beşiktaş level player. Maybe the season in Portugal has turned him into a Beşiktaş level player, but I still have to see it with my own eyes first. I'm not just going to assume. Plus, I also don't think that his style of a number 6 works very well in Turkey. Because the media and the fans, maybe they'll be a little bit more forgiving because he's Turkish. But if he was foreign, they'd be shitting on him after his second game, like they were doing for Muzraati.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll have more patience with him because he's Turkish, but I think for him, it's the best thing to go. And I also think for Beşiktaş, if we can get close to 10 million euros for him, I don't think we can complain, because that's pure profit. That would be the most expensive academy player we've ever sold. So I think if there's a good offer on the table from a good club where all 3 parties are happy, Beşiktaş are happy, Demir Ege is happy with the club he's going to, and of course, the club is happy to get Demir Ege and will give him a lot of playing time and let him develop further. You sell him for 10, you put 20% on the next sale in his contract, and you forget about it until you cash in on that 20%.
I agree, man. I think, as I said, it's best for the player and the club to move on. So if we have a decent offer for him, it's the best thing to do is to move on. I mean, Al-Muzraati supposedly has got a lot of interest from Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get 7, 8, 9, 10 million for him, I think that's very good, considering it just shows you, man, that it shows you that the guy's a good player if we're still attracted interest despite how much he's been shat on in Turkey.
Well, of course, he's a good player. I mean, I think everyone with a little bit of eyes in their head could see that there's a good player there. But I also think that from the moment he arrived, the media has had it out for them, and a big portion of the fans buy into that straight away. And they
they have it.
And they turn on him as well. And then this season, I think that had a negative impact on him. I think like some players, they play better when people shit on them. Some players don't give a fuck and they just do whatever they want. You know, they just do. They just do. And other players are impacted by it. I think Muzraati was impacted by it because this season he had a lot of shit moments, and I think that's in part. Is it because he doesn't care, or is it because he's afraid to make a mistake? I had the impression that he often made mistakes because he was not 100% comfortable in his own skin out there. You know what I mean?
I mean, he had a fair few mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
For me, when he fought the first 6 months especially, I felt that even this past season, the game against Bodo stands out, and then he had a few other like kind of not so good games where he didn't look so great. But at times we also saw how good he was. If you look at the Bilbao game, the Turkish Cup final, the Super Cup,
the Adana Demir game,
the Lugano games, the Adana Demir game, even that Samsung game when he get brought off, where he was the best player in the park before he came off.
Yeah.
He's a player that also showed a lot of quality, but just too many mistakes. And I think there's probably some truth to that, where the fact that the media, and then because of that, a fair portion of the fans had it out from almost the beginning. I think that really did affect his stint at Beşiktaş. I think that affected him mentally. And I mean, sadly, others said his bags were packed. So that tells you this is a guy that's paying attention to what's on social media, what's in the media, and was very affected by it. And I think obviously a big club like yours, I think it's best you have characters that aren't affected by these type of things. So maybe mentally you could say it's not strong enough to play for a club where it gets as toxic as it does at Beşiktaş, which is obviously it's a bad thing that it gets as toxic as it does. But unfortunately, that's just the climate we're in. That's the reality of our situation.
I mean,
you need to have players that are get a thick enough skin to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Galatasaray, for example, their fans are equally toxic, if not worse. The way they shit on their players on social media too. I mean, and they shit on them when they're winning. You know, like for example, Batshuayi was really hated on social media by Galatasaray fans, even though he won them points. He won them.
Look at Osimhen, man. Like, see when Mario Gomez left, did any of our fans swear at Mario Gomez?
I don't think so. I don't. Maybe
I can't remember.
I mean, we called him Aishan, but I think people were just sad. I think people were just sad.
People were sad, but compare that to Osimhen, man. Like, Osimhen's been getting all sorts of racist insults.
Really?
Ever since, I saw a post from a Galatasaray fan saying, ever since like news came out that it's likely that he won't be staying, that 90% of the tweets he saw about Osimhen were racist tweets, and that's someone that's a Galatasaray fan saying that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
yeah, but I mean look how they treated Burak, right?
And obviously, we are very toxic as well. Maybe to a slightly less extent, but we're extremely toxic as a fan base, and that if players like Muzraati who are mentally going to be affected by that, they're probably not suitable to be playing for our club, unless you're someone like Rafa Silva that is so good that you hit the ground running as well. Because the biggest problem with Muzraati is
the Fener
in the
game.
very first game, his quality was very clear to see. I thought this guy's passing's amazing, and alongside Pjanic, number 2 to Pjanic.
And then he scored the own goal against.
He
scored the own goal against Galatasaray, and then he got the red card against Fener. So he was immediately like it was over. It was over.
There wasn't just that as well. There was a mistake against Genk that cost it. Sorry, not Genk. The Gaziantep that cost it a goal. So there was a Gaziantep mistake.
Yeah.
Then he got injured.
And that's
Sorry, there was the Galatasaray own goal.
Yeah.
Then the week after it was the Antep game. He made the mistake and then got injured. And I actually think in that Galatasaray game, that Antep game, apart from non-goal and apart from that mistake, he was playing very well.
Well, I remember.
And then he got injured, and then he came back from injury. He looked sloppy.
Yeah, but I remember in the Galatasaray game, he scored the own goal. It was like after like 30 seconds, he scored the own goal.
Yeah, exactly. And apart from that, I thought he had a very good game.
No, he was rattled for like half an hour. And then after like half an hour, 35 minutes, he started to play good. But he was like rattled. He was rattled for at least half an hour. I remember that very vividly. But yeah, after that, he was good in that game. But the problem is as well, he was good, but we couldn't get back into the match. And that's yeah. And then the red card against Fener kind of sealed it. Like the opinions were formed at that point.
Yeah, that's the jury was out.
Yeah.
And then I think there was a wee bit of kind of, he brought it back a bit when he won as the cup final and played a spectacular game in that.
Yeah,
I thought he could play.
If he didn't have like the mistakes he had in the first half of the season, in those important moments like Bodo and stuff like that, I think public opinion would be different. But the problem as well is that if he would have been in a good team, then and he's part of the reason for the team not being as good, right? Like, because he's an important player, he's an anchor in the midfield. He is supposed to make the team play, but in some games he was, But the problem was just like, I think we had so much problem scoring goals. We had a big dip around November, and like if the team would have been good and we would have had good results, I don't think people would have minded those mistakes from Muzraati as much. But because our season went to shit in November, they have to find people to blame. And I don't remember if you were, but I myself, I was piling on. I admit it.
I always said that I like the guy, but like the kind of the connection between him and the fans is severed at this point. I said that we had to move on.
I also think, Kartal, I think he's a quality player, but at the same time, I also think if you're Beşiktaş and you pay 12 million euros for a player, which is your all-time record signing, he can't be spotty. He has to be. Yeah, you're right. He has to put in a 7 out of 10 every game, and preferably an 8.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Kaan, as well. I mean, there's people saying that the system we play as well is different from the system they played at Braga. And
that's not an excuse. I think the problem is not that. The problem was he put in 8 performances, not even irregularly. He put them in quite frequently, but he'd sprinkle also
once
a 4 or a 5 in there, and that's not acceptable for a player that costs you 12.
I do agree with that, Kaan. Like, as much as I think his passing game and the way that the guy could unlock defences, like see when he was on his day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love watching that guy play football, man, because
wonderful passing.
Just like the long passes to the wings, even the breaking through balls across the ground. Like, there's not a lot of number 6s that are that good at doing that, but you're right. There was too many mistakes in there, and especially bad times where it was costly. And then his dual performance for us was actually, when you look at it as a whole, was poor. Whereas, although not elite, like Braga or Monaco, it wasn't great.
Braga,
I
mean, at Braga,
his dual performance for us was.
At Braga,
maybe that's to do with him being mentally affected by the media and stuff like that.
But he was also, I think, and we talked about this at the time. Muzraati, if you don't have good wings, you handicap him, because
exactly. It's like you've got a really fast car, man, but the gear shift wouldn't shift beyond that, like a 3,
It's
like,
you have a Ferrari engine, but you don't have front tires on your car. That's essentially what it was. And we talked about this around January. Like, if we can bring in a good winger, Muzraati, that will automatically make Muzraati better as well. But we didn't give him the chance. We sent him to Monaco. You know, we shipped him
Yeah.
off. I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's be honest. Because Arroyo barely played, but still wouldn't have made much of a difference. But
no, in hindsight,
do you not think like? Can you remember? Can you count out many times where you thought Ox or Amir, who played instead of Muzraati, they've played some great passes today?
Yeah,
there's maybe a couple of games.
Amir had a couple of really great passes, I have to say.
But there's like a couple. You can maybe only think of a couple of games.
Yeah. No, I remember.
Whereas Muzraati, you felt that way quite often. So
every game.
I think we definitely had a downgrade in terms of a passing
Muzraati had on average, I would say 2 to 3 really good passes per match, and I think with Amir, he had maybe 4 or 5 really good passes in the entire stretch of games that he played. He had some passes where I remember in the post match episode, I was saying, "Oh, that was like a Muzraati pass," you know.
Yeah. But it's just not often enough.
No, exactly, and that's also one of those things where I think we should never have. Either we should have sold him in January for 10 million or 9 million or whatever. We should have sold him outright, or we should have kept him. I think, or an obligation to buy. That's also fine, but loaning him with an option to buy to Monaco was bullshit. Then you should have just kept him for 6 months and let Ole play and see what. And if maybe Ole likes him, maybe Ole can turn things around because there is a good player there. But because you sent him off in January, you closed the book on him. So now there's
and Monaco as well. They basically just thought, oh, we're a bit thin in the midfield. We'll bring this guy in, use him for 6 months, and then let him go.
Yeah,
I mean, he had some good moments in Monaco. He played some good games. I was looking at some of his highlight reels. He looked good.
Yeah, but he had.
Then he had a red card. And stuff
he had
the
same start. Essentially, the same thing happened to him that happened at Beşiktaş. The first Champions League game he played, and it was what was it? The round of 32 or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a bullshit red card as well.
It was a bullshit red card, but it still. It has such an impact on the rest of your career at a club, and I think the red card. If he never scores the own goal against Gala, or even just maybe he scores the own goal against Gala, but he doesn't get the red card against Fener, I think that can change things. But because he gets that red card, and I remember thinking at the time, that's probably red, but I've seen worse tackles this season from both of them, both of the yellows, and they don't get shit. So it's one of those things. As Beşiktaş fans, I feel like we're too fair sometimes. Where we're it's probably a red card, but if it was the other way around, they wouldn't get it. You know, and
I think it was a red card. Man, we can't really complain about that. But I think the Galatasaray game, he just got unlucky in the Antep game as well. But yeah, man, we just need to move on. We need to. Get a 6 that's going to be suited to the league, suited to our system. Yeah. I don't think we should be spending 10, 15, 20 million on that position though. If that Italian lad is as good as the scout wankers say he is, let Edward Graff decide. If Edward Graff thinks this guy is good and will add value to our team, bring him in for 4, 5, 6 million and then spend the rest of that money that you are considering spending on Zambo on a striker.
Yeah, exactly. If you have a big amount of money set aside for a player, spend it on the striker. Buy us a really good fucking striker. And part of me is okay, I'd spend it on somebody like Tolu, but it's risky still because this is a player. I think this is his first 20 plus goal season in his career. He's 24, I think. It's still a risk, but that's part of it, right? If you want to sign a player that has still growth in him, and you want to sign a player 24 years old or whatever, you have to take a risk like this. You can also decide, okay, I'm going to spend this 15 million on somebody like Patrik Schick, who, again, we talked about it earlier, 15 is probably not realistic for him. But you can decide, okay, we're going to spend it on a guy, 28, 29 years old, in the prime of his career, guarantee for goals. You can do that. And then you have a striker for maybe the next 3 years. Or you could go and you could spend it on a 24-year-old guy, and you could have a striker for the next 5, 6, 7 years, or you could have the striker for the next 2 to 3 years, but you sell him at a profit, right? Or I mean, or worst case scenario, he is shit and you lost your money. But that can also that can also happen with a guarantee, because there is no guarantees in football.
Exactly, there's never a guarantee, man. Like the closest things to a sure thing are things that we can't afford. Like,
but even look at Fenerbahçe. Look at Fenerbahçe, Kartal. How many strikers have they signed in the last 20 years? Like, they've spent a lot of money on strikers, but not a lot of them have, like, very few of them. I think they haven't had a proper number 9 since Pierre van Hooijdonk, I would argue. Because, like, Guiza, they spent a lot of money on him. He wasn't...
Dzeko was good, but ran out of gas.
Exactly. Good, but ran out of gas. And, like, guys like Guiza was not terrible, but...
He didn't live up to the expectations.
He didn't live up to the expectation. Kezman didn't live up to the expectation. Anelka was good, but... Yeah, Anelka was good. I think Anelka was good, but I still think Pierre van Hooijdonk was a better goal scorer. And Anelka, I think, often even played as like a winger rather than a pure 9. And then who else did they get? Like
Van Persie didn't live up to expectations.
Van Persie didn't live up to expectations. Emenike had a good season, but then dropped off. Well, then got sold because of the match fixing shit, and then came back and wasn't the same. Probably was 10 years older as well. Moussa Sow was good, but he never got to the heights he was at, like Lille. He scored 25 goals or something when Lille won the league. And then he came to Fener, and I think he was like a 15 goal a season striker. Or forward, or whatever you want to call him. Like, he was good, but he wasn't great. He wasn't a champion maker, I call it. And that's the same thing with En-Nesyri. Is En-Nesyri bad? No, he scored... How many goals did he score? Like 20 something?
A lot, man.
But he's not he's not gonna make you champions. He's not a killer. He's not a needle mover. He's good. He's not great. And I think Fener have invested so much money over the last 2 decades in strikers, but they never managed to capture lightning in a bottle. On the other hand, we've caught lightning in the bottle with Mario Gomez. We've caught lightning in the bottle with Aboubakar. We've caught lightning in the bottle, I would argue, even with Genk. We caught it with Ilhan. We caught it with even Demba Ba. I thought was a talismanic striker. Like
his injuries held him back. So, En-Nesyri scored 30 goals in all competitions, 20 in the league, 4 in the cup, and 6 in the Europa League.
But would you take him for 20 million, Kartal?
Because of it, not I wouldn't, because he didn't score any goals in any of the big games, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Mario Gomez scored 2 against Fenerbahçe, and I think 1 against Trabzon.
You said Fenerbahçe twice, but I think
2 against Fenerbahçe, 2 against Galatasaray.
Yeah. No, but as well, like Osimhen, he didn't score in the derbies either. He scored 1 goal against us, a header, but he didn't we didn't see him in that game. He was in Felix and Emirhan's pocket. He scored on a set piece, but he in open play he was in their pockets. And in the game we didn't see him. And
he was having a heady fit at the end of the game.
And did he score against Fener? I don't remember. I think... Did he score against Fener?
Maybe he got in the cup.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe in the cup. I don't know. But I think Osimhen had a monster season, but even he in the derbies wasn't necessarily the decisive player. He didn't put his mark on the derbies like Mario Gomez did, for example. Like Icardi has as well. Icardi
Icardi was a menace against us, man.
Yeah, in his first season he scored, I think, in every... at least he scored against Fener, he scored against us. I mean, he put his mark on some games. Osimhen, for how good he was, and he might be the best striker to play in the Turkish league ever, at least in his prime. I would
he scored twice against Fenerbahçe in the cup quarter-final.
Right, that's right, in the cup. But then in the league he didn't, though. So it's like...
he didn't, no.
it's you know, but he made them champions still. Like, you don't have to do it in the you don't have to do it in the derbies if you can do it in every other game. Like the way Osimhen dominated the league. Like, Enesiri scored a lot of goals, but you can't say he dominated the league.
Well, he scored 6 less than Osimhen did, but I suppose Osimhen did take a fair amount of penalties.
Osimhen had like 7-8 penalties, but the amount of goals isn't what I'm talking about. Even Osimhen dominated every game, or most of the games. Like, every team was afraid of him when Galatasaray could play like shit and they send a long ball and Osimhen would make something out of it. That's not Enesiri. Enesiri was just a tower up top. They pumped balls into the box and he headed a couple of goals in. Like, Enesiri was never that. He didn't change the matches. You know what I mean? Like, Osimhen was a one-man front line. Enesiri wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's the difference there, I think. How did we end up on this?
We're talking about spending what we should be spending the money on. A striker.
Yeah. So you want to spend the money on, let's call it a talismanic striker.
Yeah. Yeah. Ideally, man.
Yeah. Then there's one more rumor here, and that's I talked about this in the VIP as well. But Kasim Pasha, Burak Yilmaz apparently keen on getting Tayyip Talha. Whether I think it's on loan. Let's see. Yeah, Istedi just says he wants him. But
I think we should just say that, look, you can have him for free. We could even drive the club. We should even arrange a car to take Tayyip Talha to the
I think
because he's someone we need to get rid of.
You could say, hey, you can have him for free, but we want 50% of his transfer rights. I think that's fair.
Look, see if they don't accept that. I'd just say just take him in.
No. Why would they not accept that? They get him for free, man.
If they don't know, see if they say we don't accept that.
Yeah, then you offer the same deal to Rizespor or somebody else. That's a very fair.
I mean, if someone's up for that, yeah, of course.
No, but Kartal, that's by doing that, what you just said. That is why we never get money from players. That is why Anadolu teams come and they say, hey, I want to take this player from you, but I don't want to pay shit. You need to start making them pay. Even if it's only 200,000 euros. Either they pay or they give you rights on the transfer. Like, you only give them 50% or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get that, that's great, man. But
that's what you have to do.
Yeah, so I'm pretty desperate to get rid of, to be honest.
Yeah, but that is exactly what they want. And they know that. And that's why they take advantage of you. And you need to stop allowing them to take advantage of you. You know why this never happens to Fener? Because Fener, if they don't like, they just keep him. And they just let them run out their contracts. But I think that's better because in the long term, you're going to have so many clubs wanting to take advantage out of you. And like the measly money that Taiwo makes, he makes maybe like 400k or 500k. I think it's worth that. To just keep him around, just never use him. Just maybe then just loan him out or whatever. But if they want him, and you can just tell him, look, you can have him. 50% of his transfer rights on the next transfer are mine. And the chance of him ever leaving are not very great. But if he somehow rekindles his career and finds himself, and Galatasaray end up buying him for 2 million, then you get $1 million, and rightfully so, I think. So I think you should do something like that. You either let them pay a transfer fee, a small transfer fee, 250,000 euros, doesn't matter. But you need to stop giving players for free. You need to stop doing that. Especially a player like Tayyip Talha, who is not on a big contract. He is not earning 1.2 million a year. So there's no reason you should be desperate. If like for example Amir, and you can't find a club to buy him, and you're really desperate to get rid of him because he's both foreign and he earns 1.2 million a year, and then there's a club who comes, hey, we will take him off your hands for free. Yeah, okay, no problem. You took 1.2 million off my annual wage bill. That's different, but with Tayyip Talha, he's not making big money, so you should not be desperate to get rid of him. What's the worst thing that can happen? You put him on the reserves, right? I mean, there's no reserves, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get 50% of the next transfer, it's good, man. It's good.
It's not about the 50%. It's about the
set of precedent.
It's exactly. You need to stop allowing these clubs to take advantage of you. That's the most important part. Or any other transfer rumors?
Yeah, I think that's it. So we should get to maybe the big news of the day. But the shirts were released. So if we should get some photos of them up, and obviously we've spoken about the white shirt and the Trouble Club before, but it's different now. We have we now have the images of the shirts on the players, which I think they look a lot better on our players than they do on the Adidas models.
I just put the video on here. Should I put on the sound?
I mean, I think people can watch it themselves. So it's
exactly. Yeah. People should just go out of their way. I think the sound was on when it started, by the way. So sorry if I blasted your ears there, guys. But you can see the video here in the background. So the announcement video dropped today on the official Beşiktaş social media accounts. So go out of your way, go and check that out. I know Kartal really likes these types of videos. I really like these types of videos as well. They put the hair on the back of your neck upstanding. But the shirts look great. I think the white shirt looks great in this video. Yeah. We're seeing it right now. I think the white shirt actually looks really good in this video.
It does. It definitely does.
It could be the coloring they're using, though.
Yeah, and the fabric looks brilliant, I think, as well. It looks very breathable, man.
I think the striped shirt actually doesn't look half bad either, man, honestly. I know you're not a big fan, but I think the striped shirt looks okay. And let's have a look at the new black one. So here we can
for some reason, there's no photos of players wearing these ones. It's two models. In fact, that guy's not a model, he's a content creator.
I think, you know what, I when I saw the shirts, the black shirts yesterday, I did not like him. On this guy, I actually kind of like it. It looks decent on this guy. Let's see on this one, on these two girls. I mean, you know, it doesn't in this lighting. It doesn't look half bad. I have to be honest. And also the fact that the collar is open a little bit, like the top button is open. I think. Why are they? Yeah, I mean. The material looks nice as well. I can't see the patterns on it though, Kartal. Apparently there's some sort of...
I can see them, bro.
Is there like a checker on it or some people were saying?
Yeah. So the pattern is actually is taking inspiration from the doors of the club museum at the stadium.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, you can see that it is the same design. So that it's a wee nod to the stadium, which is quite cool, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I have to be honest. This picture as well, I kind of like it. And no, people, it's not the boobs inside of the t-shirt. I kind of like the shirt here, and like when I saw them with the promotional shots the other day on the models, I thought it looked like shit. But just a little thing, that top button being open and just looking at the material looks good here. It looked very bland on the promotional pictures I was seeing. I'm not a big fan of the red accents. I don't
like that. See if you change that red piping and make it the same colour as the stripes or white even. It's a much better shirt.
I think if you change that to the same color of the striping, then you have the piping and the striping the same color, and then you have the collar which is white and the Adidas logo and the sponsor which is white. That would be perfect. I think the red kind of feels a little bit out of place. If they would have maybe
the whole set kind of feels like that, man. Like what's the need for all this red, man? Come on.
I don't mind them incorporating it, but there would have been a better way to do it. I think, for example, if you look at that collar, Kartal, it's a black collar with a white stripe and then another black stripe, essentially. Instead of making that black stripe black, make that red. I think that would be fine. I think that would.
Or maybe the white red.
Yeah, you can turn it around, but I would make two. The edge of the collar, I would make two stripes, white and red, and then I think it looks cool. But I think the piping on this, they should have.
No, fine.
I'm not a big fan of the piping in general. I'm not like that model of shirt. I'm not a big fan of that, honestly. So maybe it's just that. Also, I said this to you in private already, but I used to have, like, when I was a kid, my dad bought me a fake jersey. I think it was like the Cola Turca time, and it was like a striped jersey like this, and it had red piping like that.
Yeah, it reminded you of this.
And for me, it's just like,
makes
it, to me, it kind of makes it look like a fake shirt to me. Now when I see it like this, I again, like, I think this striped jersey doesn't look half bad. Just the white.
Yeah, I think seeing this photo, it looks decent, but there's one photo of some guy wearing it, and the neckline comes very low, like the cut of the neck.
Yeah,
and it looked terrible. But on Muzraati and Mustafa and Emirhan, it looks pretty good. It looks decent, man.
I mean, I think a lower neckline is good for us fat fucks with big necks like myself, you know? Because, like, for example, like my 1990s Adidas jerseys, they have very slim necks. Like, it's like, how am I supposed to fit my gorgeous throat through that, man? Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I'm still not super keen on these shirts. Like, I mean, last season or the past season we just played, like, the black shirt, I love it. I think it's one of my all-time favorite shirts.
Yeah.
None of these three shirts I think will ever, like, in 5 years' time, I will ever be like, oh, that's one of my favorites. I don't think so. But I also don't think they're rubbish, like a lot of people are saying. I think it's okay. I would give them all like a 6.5 out of 10 maybe. No bangers, but also not terrible, honestly. And the white one actually is probably the best one out of the bunch.
Yeah, I think the white one's the best one, man. And I think on the players, matched with the black shorts, like we talked about the first time when it was leaked, it looks a lot better, and I think by far it's the best shirt in this set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I can't see the share.
Yeah, I accidentally closed the screen sharing. I'll start it up again. But yeah, I agree with you, man. Like, I think the white one probably, and I have to say, when I first saw the white one, I thought it was quite unexciting. And I wasn't a big fan of the split of black on one, red on the other. And if I see it in this picture, for example, again, I don't really like it that much, having it, half. But when I saw it in the video, for example, I thought it looked great. I think on the pitch, like, I think the red will be a lot less prominent. Exactly. I think it'll be a lot less of an eyesore. Like, here, just this picture already, like on Rafa, it looks fine.
It looks brilliant. It don't even finance it looks brilliant.
Yeah. So
don't get me wrong, I'd still prefer it if they just kept it like black piping, three stripes on both sides. Mm-hmm. I'd prefer that. I'd say it's more what a Beşiktaş top should look like. I think it's too much use of red for a Beşiktaş shirt, but I still think it looks pretty dope. On Rafa, I think it looks great.
You know what? I think it's kind of cool, to be honest. And I think it's just something we kind of have to warm up to. Like, my first reaction is like, why are they doing this? But then you have to look at this, like, if this would have just been black, it would have just been another white shirt, like we've had so many, and it would have been a good white shirt. But now this is unique. This is the only shirt in our history that has this particular design, and maybe in 10 or 15 years we could be like, you know what? That shirt was really cool. And if we somehow do something crazy this season, and let's say we go, I don't know, we go to the semis in the Europa League, or somehow by some miracle go to the final in our own stadium,
or we somehow win the league.
Yeah, or we somehow win the league. It can happen, right? Miracles happen. Leicester City has won the Premier League. You know what I mean? So I think it would be less big of a miracle than that. So I think if we do stuff in this shirt, we'll remember it very fondly. Otherwise,
and it looks class on the players. I think on Rafa, on Mustafa, on Muzraati, who the photos have been taken with them in the shirts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this white shirt looks really cool on them. I think it looks a lot better on them than it did on the Adidas model.
Yeah.
So there's Emirhan and Mustafa there.
Yeah.
I think it looks really cool again on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Would I prefer it with all black? I'm still saying that, but I think it looks cool the way it is. And as you've said, Kaan, this does make it unique, and it will definitely make it stand out for years to come. We'll say, I remember that shot where like it had half of the accents were red and half are black. We'll always remember it, and especially if we do some cool stuff in it.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. Like I kind of feel the same way about the striped shirt from this season. The striped shirt from this season does not excite me, but we beat Atletico Madrid in it. Athletic Bilbao. Sorry. We beat Athletic Bilbao in it. We beat Galatasaray in the Super Cup in it. We beat Galatasaray at home in it. Like, you know, that type of stuff. And then, you know, if you somehow, you know, you get a Rafa shirt, maybe, it's still pretty special, I think. So sometimes a shirt becomes special later on. And you know what? I mean, the more I think about it, my first reaction is, why did they do half and half like that? Like one half black, one half red. But the more I think about it, and I'm talking myself into liking it now, because it is unique. It is something that we've never seen before. And maybe it is better than if they would have just done it all black, because now it's a special shirt, which it would not really have been otherwise. So kind of coming around on it.
I'm one for kind of, in terms of, I'd rather something that when you look at it, you think that's a Beşiktaş shirt. Like, see if you take away that badge, see if you look at that shirt, would you think that's a Beşiktaş shirt?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
If you take away the
like,
sponsor and the badge,
see if you made the three stripes black and the piping black on both sides, you'd look at it and say that's a Beşiktaş shirt, even if it didn't have the logo on it. And I think I prefer that, but I still think this looks nice on the players, definitely.
I think it looks good. You know what I would have liked? I think if it would have had a black collar, that would have, or you know, like a collar split in the middle, like a V-neck collar, and like one side red, one side black, and have the red on the side of the black stripes, and have the black on the side of the red stripes. I think that would have been pretty cool. Can you imagine it?
It could be, man. I need to see it first. It could be.
Yeah, okay. You need to see it, of course. I'm seeing it in front of me, but I think that would be pretty cool. But the more and more I see it, the more I'm coming around to it. So, yeah.
Well, I'd say this is the best out of the set, man. Well, there we go. There's Mucci as well, looking pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I think that'll do it. We've talked about the most prominent transfer rumors right now, and we've talked about these new shirts. And then on Sunday, you, me, and Sinan, we can talk about
the season.
The season, exactly. So thank you all for watching this episode, this bonus episode, Black Eagles podcast, transfer talk with Kartal and Kaan. And maybe we'll do another one of this in the coming weeks. I think this was pretty fun, Kartal. And
yeah, definitely, man. I had a good time. It was a good way to spend my Friday night, myself in the house before my wife gets home.
Well, and thank you. I hope it was a good way for you to spend your evening or day, or whenever you're watching this on the toilets, at work, listening to this in the car, on way to work, or whenever you decide to watch. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can be alerted of new videos and live streams. And like I said, on Sunday we will be live with our season recap. We'll be talking about our player of the season, our goal of the season, our match of the season, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll also be talking about who we want to sell, who we want to let go, who we want to loan, who we want to keep, and all that kind of post-season kind of stuff, right? And then afterwards, once we're done with that episode, we'll start doing more transfer, maybe episodes kind of like this, but then with 3 heads, hopefully, instead of 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again for watching, and see you again on Sunday.